Right. So much, Tim, for that. We will be opening the lines for the questions. I can go ahead and unmute you. You can straight away ask Tim about any question you have, and we can carry on the discussion from there. Please raise your hand and I will unmute you. Thank you, everyone.
And for its worth, any project management topic we can discuss. And also, preparing for the PMP exam, we can talk about that. We can talk about the exam itself. We can talk about the application. I'm here for you.
Hi, Tim.
Good day.
How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
All right. My question is, I am new to PMP as in the framework, but I do have like understanding of why it's there, and I want to um, appear for the examination to be a certified professional in this field. So, what are the advice you would provide to a person like me, and how would you want a person like me who has some background but not structured knowledge about the PMP examination or project management to approach PMP exam? I hope I was clear in my question.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have an introduction, but not a great knowledge in project management. How do I progress? Okay, so there's basically 3 ways we learn. You can read, and it gives you certain knowledge. You can do, which is much better, right? Applying the action teaches you much more than just reading. It really does. And I would recommend that you do this, and I'll get into more detail in a minute. Or you can discuss and find experts, okay? So the 2 that are the best is doing projects is primary value, having mentors is secondary, okay? And that's how I would look at it. Reading is great. It gives you theory, but getting your hand, it's like building a barn, right? You read about hammers and you read about saws, but until you get around the sawdust, the nails, and the boards, you don't know what building the barn is all about. And that's why we want to do projects. Now, how do you go about doing projects when you don't understand them? First of all, find a simple way to approach. Just like building a barn, right? You'd want to build a small barn first, not a lot of detail to it, okay? So small projects. You want smaller projects. And you want to do them pretty simple, that we call informal, right? You don't need formal documentation for everything, but you need formal documentation for some pieces. Now, what if you don't have the opportunity to work projects? Well, this is the funny thing. On the application for the PMP exam, it says you must have experience. Okay, what you don't read until you talk to an expert is you don't need the job title, project manager. You don't need to be the assigned PM. You merely need to have performed the work. So if you're on a project right now, talk to your project manager. If they're a PMP, great. This is something that you can actually use, okay? If your project manager is PMP, they have taken an oath to help you, okay? They must help you. I'm serious. It's one of those oaths of ethics and morals that says, nope, nope, you can't say no to me. You need to promote project management and good project management. So guess what? You have an automatic mentor there. Congratulations. Now, part of the work of projects is what? It's communication. It's doing emails. It's talking. It's talking in the hallways. It's talking in the elevators, and it's talking in the cafeteria. There are other pieces of project management, and if we were to continue this discussion, I can show you they're just as simple. A lot of these things don't need authority. What they need is the ability to understand that this work is project work, and I'm doing the leading and controlling by performing these tasks. Now, finally, what organizations may call projects may indeed be projects, and other work may be projects as well, all right? As long as it's unique, right? Requires its own plan, and it's bound by time, right? Specific start and end. You have a project. And even if you're the only person doing the project, and even if you're the person who's the entire team, you're doing project management activities. You're leading and directing, right? That's the key. That's where your experience comes from, okay? I would, if you're working in a work environment, take formal project management training so you can learn the terms and you can learn the general forms. It sounds like you have an understanding of the general framework, which is great, and that's a good start. In order to apply for the PMP, you need about 4,500 hours if you have a university degree. That's about 2.25 years if you're fully utilized on projects, 100%. But PMI, who owns the credential, prefers that you have this spread out across 3 to 8 years. But yeah, there's it, and we seem to think we need permission for all these things, right? Actually, if you can control your work, that means that you can ensure success and minimize failure. And if the tasks your director gives you are unique and time bound and you're making them more successful and you're removing failure, if I had somebody like that, I probably would be curious as to how they're doing this. And I would sit down and talk with you and find out, oh, you're putting some thought into this, right? As long as it doesn't get, as long as it ensures success and it minimizes failure, and the success of the project, like we said, generally as a director or project manager, it's reflected as success in the organization. So it works really well. Now, we can talk about mentorship too, and I'll talk about mentorship real quickly. A coach is somebody who gives you a skill, and that's great. You're going to have coaches along all the way, and there's a definite start and there's a definite end to coaching because once you're trained, you know the material, you can go on. Second of all, a mentor is a relationship. If you're curious about a relationship, I would look into Project Management Institute and look at 2 places. There's a website called projrctmangement.com, which is a community, much like LinkedIn, for people who are pursuing the PMP credential and other credentials. And there's also local chapters, and local chapters give you an opportunity to meet face-to-face with local project management experts. And you can build relationships with these people. And guess what? They get credit for having a relationship with people like you who are wanting to build skills. That is what I'd advise. It takes about 3 to 5 years to become an expert to where you can pass the PMP exam and you feel rather confident. And beyond that, you're just refining and refining and refining. Looks like we have a second question. Hi, Sana. Let's see what we have. I'm just going to copy this question real quickly. As an academic, teaching project management courses to engineering students without professional experience, can you apply for the PMP exam? Good. You know what? I'm going to be able to continue this discussion and give a little bit more advice. I'm going to go back to the PMI website. There are specific requirements for taking the PMP exam. You have to be approved. And if you go over here, and let's see, can I send this out? Maybe. If you go to the PMI website, www.pmi.org, click to certifications, and select the PMP, you can actually pull down the handbook and it'll tell you the requirements. And this is what I was just describing. There's 2 other components you need, and now there's details around those components, right? Let's see, let me get my highlighter out. And let me choose another color. You need 35 hours of formal education. Now, this could be university training, right? This could be inside of a company formal training. It's somewhere you can actually have documented evidence that you took project management related training. Now, that could be leadership training. That could be management training. It could be risk, it could be finance, it could be any aspect of project management. You also need experience. And as I described before, if you have a university degree, or what we call a bachelor's degree in the United States, you need 4,500 hours of experience leading and directing projects. Now let's actually bottom out of this, okay? There's a couple things we need to understand. First of all, you may already have experience leading and directing projects, okay? First of all, a project is a unique undertaking, right? Requires its own plan, never been performed in this manner, and is time bound, okay? Specific start and end. I was a marketing manager. I was a marketing engineer, right? Conferences, those are projects. Never the same and has a start and end. I did a lot of promotional activities, educational awareness, right? Unique and time bound. Product launches, All these things are projects, and we don't realize that we're doing projects all the time. So in a university environment, I'd look for the last 3 to 5 years and see how much of your work was repeated operations, just regular stuff that never changes, and then projects that apply change in a controlled manner. Next, there's a little document here called the exam content outline. You need to look right now at the current exam content outline, okay? This is the one that applies today. The new content outline doesn't come into effect until next June 2020, so you don't have to worry about it. It's interesting, but you don't have to worry about it for today. Now, this document here lists the tasks that a project manager does on the project. So if you do these things, you're already managing projects. Let me give you an example. There are initiating tasks, which are proposals, and they gain project approval, right? They're how you get a project together, and you have approval from people who have the funding and say, yes, I want you to do this. And then there's some planning. And then there's leading and directing project work. And then there's monitoring, controlling, and closing. Let's look at the individual tasks. PMI has all this stuff laid out, right? So it's very easy to find this detail. So if you're doing work that is unique and it's time bound, and these are the activities you're doing it, you can take credit for the hours that you do this within your projects. Perform stakeholder analysis, right? Who are the people impacted by my project? Who are the people that could impact my project, right? That counts. Identifying risk, participate in the development of the charter. And if you take the classes, you learn that the charter is nothing more than an approval. It's a document, certainly, but it is actually what breathes life into the project. It says, once you have approved charter, you have a project. Now, obtaining approval, conducting benefit analysis. Have you ever done a business case? That's part of it. Informing stakeholders of the approved project charter. And I tell my students this all the time. Even if you have no authority, you can't make any decisions. A lot of times your organizational manager puts you in a position where you're overseeing work and you're communicating. That's leading and directing a project. We can actually see this even more when we go into planning. We don't just make a plan. We plan for cost. We plan for scope. We start capturing requirements. We develop our resource plan. We develop our communication plan. How are we going to communicate, right? How am I going to talk to my stakeholders? How often do I send my emails out? Are we going to have formal meetings? We're going to have conference calls over the phone. That counts as hours towards that. And those are the hours you can use to gain approval. Plan for risk, plan for change, plan for quality. All of these things talk about it. Present the plan to the relevant stakeholders in order to obtain approval. Conduct a kickoff meeting. Develop stakeholder plan. There's a lot of little tiny steps that you don't have to have any authority for, and you can actually claim it as leading and directing work. Let's continue this just a little bit more. In executing, maintain stakeholder relationships, right? The CEO and you are in the elevator and you're talking about the project. That counts. You're sitting down with the team member, seeing how they're doing, over a free cup of coffee in the cafeteria, and just ensuring that they're comfortable and they're moving forward and they have what they need. That counts as leading and directing the project. Managing the flow of information, right? Make sure the documents are going where they're going and the people are talking. All that I'm talking about are included in those 4,500 hours across 3 to 8 years. We do this naturally in our work. And what we learn as we prepare for the PMP exam, same thing you do in the projects, except you get credit for it. That's all. There's a lot more to it. There's monitoring controlling, which has to do with inspection and variance analysis and trend analysis, as well as forecasting and ensuring the proper changes are approved. This goes into it too, right? Contracting. Contracting is all about projects, right? You want a contract to be open, and as soon as possible, you want to close it. Guess what you have? Sounds like we have a project on our hands. And the same thing with closing. Obtaining feedback. That sounds like surveys. Do you ever do surveys within that unique work that's time-bound? Do you archive documents and information? The only reason I went through this exam content outline is to demonstrate two things. Number one, you're doing this work all the time. And number two, you're probably doing this work inside projects, even though you don't call them projects. So you may have the ability to actually be able to claim this and prepare for the exam. Now, getting accepted for the exam and preparing for the exam are two different topics. And preparing for the exam takes a little more effort. Let's see here. I have a bunch of questions now. Just a second.
Well, Tim, in that case, I can go ahead and unmute the participants so as to ask the questions.
And by the way, a thesis is a wonderful project. It's a wonderful project. Yeah, it's unique and it's time bound. Now, in order for it to qualify, you're going to have to consider having a reference. So if you have your thesis mentor be able to be a reference, you're fine with that. Let's see here.
Tim, do you want me to unmute the participants so that they can ask the questions directly
Oh,
to you?
please do. Please do.
Hi Tim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So I have a question. You said something early on in the in this lecture where you said if you can teach your team why we do what we do as project managers, you can lead them through more effectively. So my question really is, which is the more important in this? Is it domain knowledge of the specific industry and the tasks that you're working with, or PMP framework knowledge, or is it actually a combination of both?
It's a combination of both and more. The framework we aspire for is a framework that says that the team is the expert in the technology. The framework is where the project manager has their expertise, and combining the two is what makes the magic occur. The team does the work and the project manager ensures the control. Now, neither one is more important. However, we look at leadership. And if you just take leadership in general, this question gets even more interesting because it starts looking at something called motivation. People are much more motivated if they know why this is needed, why it's necessary. So you have leaders talk about why. When I was in marketing, my marketing manager said, Tim, within 5 seconds, if the people talking with you don't know why they should be talking with you, they're going to move on. And it's the same thing with your team. And you have to be the master of why. A lot of times with the team, your team's going to come to you and says, why we have to do this? Well, here's the executive and here's the strategy. You're not just putting a box together. this box is going to change the direction of the corporation, and it's going to generate this much revenue, and it's going to change our course. Okay, all of a sudden they're contributing something of great value, not just making a box. And then you're turning around and talking to the executives. And the executives are saying, why do we have to wait for 3 weeks? Because you have this majestic corporate why, and the team is a small part, but their part has technical steps. And if you really want it the way you do, we have to do this. So in a way, the project manager is the intercession. They're just like any other leader. They sit in the back and they're the traffic cop. You know, they're presenting the executive why to the team so the team's motivated, and they're providing the executing why back to the execution, back to the executives, so the executives can understand and they can accept and they can be more satisfied. And if you do that enough, that's where the trust is ensured. People like to be a part of something bigger than who they are. It's all about Maslow, right? And so when I talk about this big why, yes, it's about the technical aspects of project management, and you should be ready to explain why you're doing things the way you're doing. The VP here wants to know how big a piece this is of their strategy so they can figure out how much the budget we get next 6 months. That's sort of important, isn't it, team? And also, it's the technology part too. And if the team doesn't understand their work, we learn in our training that the leader is responsible for failure where the team makes success. And that's the beautiful thing. It's the soldiers who win the war and the generals who lose it. It's the sad part of leadership. We have to take accountability and we have to be able to move in. And that's where I come back to making sure everybody understands why. I may not understand their work, but I understand the reason the work is valuable. And if I can actually translate the value back to them, it gives them motivation. Yeah, at one level, it's a very specific why, but at a higher and much more influential level, it's much more general. It's human behavior. It's all about motivation. Thanks for that question, Paul.
Just following up on that, do you think somebody who has had a long history in, on the project team side, in various projects with domain knowledge, has an advantage to get the point across about why we're doing what we're doing, or is a talented, articulate project manager who has no knowledge just as easily? Can they do that just as easily?
That's tough. That's tough. I think it's very situational and it's very individual.
Right.
Once upon a time, I was masterful in IT projects. And then all of a sudden it was ordained that I should not be just for IT because I had a wealth of knowledge in finance and in business. And why don't I consider managing these type of projects and also contributing my expertise to that? And so I had to make a big decision, and I realized that it gave me an opportunity to actually step away from the team. It's a very personal decision. I think there is value in being a team member who understands the various aspects of project management. It makes it very easy for the project manager to delegate and to integrate and have them participate in things like managing conflict and managing issues. And you don't have to teach them about the role of communication and risk and quality per se anymore. But at the same time, having a project manager who's a generalist has incredible value. Without that general knowledge, I wouldn't have been able to work in fuel and oil and healthcare and federal and civic government projects and work in finance and once you start doing that and you're a generalist, whether you're an expert in databases, whether you're an expert in management and leadership, once you get exposure across industry and sector, all of a sudden it's like traveling the world. You find out that people are people the world over. And the interesting things are the cultural differences and the political differences and the perception differences, and the same thing with project management. It doesn't answer your question per se, but yes, it's valuable to a point, but there's a point where you need to grow beyond. And all of a sudden you realize databases are behind the Chicago Board of Exchange, and they also are helping us drive pharmacy, and it's also helping us work in healthcare. I hope that perspective gave you a little bit of insight.
Yeah, it did. Thanks.
Welcome. And I see another question here. What's the difference between a PMP and a CAPM? Let me share this on the screen. This is a very quick answer. I could say 70 questions in an hour. I'm serious. The exam for the PMP is 4 hours and 200 questions, and the exam for CAPM is 3 hours and 130 questions, and they're the same questions. The PMP demonstrates you're an expert in managing and leading projects. The CAPM credential shows that you're an expert in participating and contributing. Now, those of you who know Prince 2, Prince 2 came out of England and the United Kingdom, let me correct myself. And it actually is not a competing credential. It's fascinating. They both align with ISO 21500, which is the International Standard Organization standard for project management. But Prince 2 has levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And level 1 aligns with CAPM, which says I'm an expert in participating in projects. I can contribute as a team member, and I know how projects work. And this actually says I'm good, right? I can work within this environment effectively. You can actually apply these things, not necessarily to leading and directing to project success, but participating and contributing to project success. So that's level 1, Prince 2. And then the PMP is level 2. The question whenever this comes up in the PMP class is, should I wait and get my PMP, or should I just get my CAPM and build towards my PMP? Well, it depends. There's two things: market demand, economics, right? Are you in a large corporate environment? Are you in a large city that has a lot of publicly traded, major revenue corporations, because they recognize the CAPM and they recognize Prince 2 level 1. If not, I would look at my experience and see if I can qualify right now for my PMP. CAPM is a great stepping stone, but again, you're going to be taking the 3-hour, 130 question quiz here, and in 3 years, you're going to take the quiz. Now, the quizzes are different, right? The exams are different. You can actually take the CAPM exam, I think, from your home. You'll need to look at the exam at the material. Yeah, there's an online proctored exam that this just came up 2 years ago. But all the information you need is over here on pmi.org. Look at the two, ask questions, and then make the decision that's valuable for you. Oh yeah, Oh yeah, and by the way, everyone, we're going to be starting a PMP prep class here on the 9th of November. You can get all the material and the information out, and you can stay in touch with us over here at Ijona Academy, okay? And you can go in here, take a look at our webinars and what's coming up. You can continue to talk about us, talk with us, and we also have the training here too. So yeah, please stay in touch, everyone. This is a unique opportunity. I have taken the oath as well, which means I'm committed and obligated to help you through this process. You know, that's what we do here. We are all mentors. You guys are just as expert as we are. An effective leader knows that they go in a room and half the people in that room are smarter than them in something. And if a leader is smart, they'll listen as much as they talk. Any other questions or any more questions? Well, we have some upcoming webinars. Find us out on LinkedIn too. You can look up Ijona Academy, and we do promote through there as well. But you can just come to the webinars link off of Ijona Academy, and you can see what we're going to be talking about. The next topic, again, is very interesting, and you should see more material on this coming out in the next few days. I want to thank you again, everyone. I will remain here for a minute or two. Back over to you, Muli.
Hey, thank you so much, Tim. Right, exactly. Like Tim said, we are starting our batch exactly on the 9th of November. If anybody is interested in the batch, please do let us know. Please share your feedback after the session. And if you have any further questions, please raise your hand and I'm going to unmute you. Thank you.